Welcome to the Karmic Mirror podcast, brought to you by Fifth Line Studios. In this space, we unravel the profound wisdom tucked within the folds of the self-help world and present it to you in a way that resonates with the heart of the collective.
Our mission is to seamlessly bridge the gap between esoteric knowledge and practical tools for everyday life. Whether you're a seasoned seeker or just beginning your path, join us and uncover the magic within and around you. Tune in and let the journey begin. Hello and welcome to Karmic Mirror. Today we are thrilled to be speaking with Tess Palma-Martinez, founder of Completely Golden. Tess is a sound healer and a manifestation expert, and she's known for her medicinal style of sound healing, integrating crystal tones, singing bowls, and hypno-meditation into her practice. Through her authenticity and embodiment mentorship, retreats, and workshops, Tess helps her clients achieve profound healing and shifts in perspective, fostering greater self-awareness and creative expression. We are so grateful to have you and very honored to speak with you. So welcome, Tess.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here. Thank you both for the invitation.
We were talking right before you jumped on, Tess, and Michelle was just saying, do you remember how in flow this is when you got on our radar until this point today when you were here? And for those listening, this will be on the heels of our nervous system series and the impact to self-love, growth, healing, all the things that we really treasure here at Karmic Mirror. And when we were going through, of course, sound healing made that list, but I didn't want to speak to it. Michelle didn't want to speak to it because I knew I had Tess, who I've listened to your other bodies of work and just so profound, I couldn't do it justice. And so I thought it was really cool to revisit how you and I became connected. And so through the To Be Magnetic community, which is a layer woven into all of the things that Michelle and I also work on. But I was kind of begrudgingly going on a hike and I'm like, I don't feel like doing a deep imagining today. I guess I'll just listen to a podcast. And I'm like, okay, what was the title? I had written it down. Releasing Fear and Stepping into Your Worth. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll do this today. And then I start listening and I start giggling when you share your story, Tess, because at that point I hadn't remembered until you started talking. Oh my goodness, I've been calling in expanders. So people who show up, do the thing, are the thing that you're trying to call in or exude more of. And in the To Be Magnetic community, the closer you can get to someone who resembles you, your childhood, your demographic, it helps our neuro pathways more. And so the giggles came from Tess was talking about a cross-country trip that she took or was driving. And oh my gosh, I just got back from a cross-country road trip solo. And then she mentioned that she was from upstate New York and I'm from upstate New York. And I just started giggling. And so afterwards, stalked her on social media and sent her a quick message just saying, thanks for your vulnerability. I was begrudgingly showing up today and it really changed my day and it was really impactful. So thank you. And then much to my delight, it was so gracious. You responded with a voice note, and that is such a theme of Karmic Mirror too, Tess, is this voice note is how Karmic Mirror came to be. Michelle and I back and forth. And you were just so generous with your time. And at some point, I think you had said, oh, did I just invite myself to be on your podcast? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. And here I was on the other side going, we haven't even recorded an episode yet, but I want her as a guest, but I can't ask her now. And it just flowed. And then, we've been in touch, but right now is really an ideal time. And so just again, thank you. So thrilled that you agreed and said yes.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that recap. And I remember all of those details now that you laid out the story, and I was sitting here smiling because, yeah, it's just when we have those kismet moments, and I really feel that we're always led to the information and the people, the experiences that are meant for us. And when it is in alignment, it just flows. It's almost unspoken in the way that you had the intention of inviting me on this podcast, and I was already like, oh my God, and I could come on and I could talk about this. And then I was like, oh wait, why why am I inviting myself on their podcast? But it was already there. It was already in the frequency space. And that's what I do. I work in frequency. And so I think that it's just a beautiful example of following your truth and being open to receiving.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I know we were just talking earlier and I was like, the words like synchronicities keep coming up. And Allie was like, this was months ago. Or I don't know, a long time ago, it feels like now. And Allie's like, I met this woman. I reached out to her. And now I'm really interested in the sound healing training. And it was just so cool. And it just sparked all of these ideas too. So I love when things kind of like really happen that way.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate too your forethought of, neither of us know about sound healing. So let's find a sound healer to come on and talk about this. And that's a really important piece. If it's not an area of your expertise, please don't share on it. And that's to anyone listening, like find the people that it is their life's work. And it's all about connection and amplifying voices. And I think that is more important now than ever before. I mean, it was always important, but we're really realizing the why behind that now.
So we're so excited to jump into sound healing, Tess, and pick your brain. But before we do that, astrology, human design help us, and we really geek out over that esoteric nature of it. So from what you know, would you mind sharing? And Michelle and I always geek out about that. Do you know your sun, moon, and rising? And maybe just energy type or profile of human design if you know it, and authority.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to geek out on that stuff as well. I don't hold myself to anything, but there's definitely a thread of identity that I have with these. So within my tropical zodiac, I am a Gemini sun. I just had my 37th birthday. And thank you. And my rising and my moon are both Pisces. So I present and view myself more as Pisces than Gemini, but Gemini really shows itself within the work that I'm doing. Geminis are seen as like the greatest host, and we can have conversation with anyone. And that really showcases itself in the trainings that I do and the retreats that I'm leading and the mentorship that I'm working with. And communication is the strong suit. And we're also really great manifestors, Geminis. I mean, everyone has the ability, but for whatever reason, it's a little easier for the Gemini. And then within the Pisces, that is the wise one, that it's the end of the zodiac wheel, and intuitive and emotional. And both signs, I think, it's so interesting for me. And why I really connect so deeply is Gemini is the twins, duality. There are two twins. Pisces is also two fish, duality, lightness and darkness. And so I have so much duality within my chart, and that really, I feel, speaks to who I am as a person and my ability to be within the lightness and carry the lightness, but also traverse the darkness. And I was reading something that was outlining how all of the different people and positions in the world, they focus on different things, or their medicine or different things. And for healers, we work in the darkness. I just loved that sentence, that healers work in the darkness. I have experienced so much of that in my life and felt victim to it for a lot of the time. And it wasn't until I really started this path of intentionally healing and integrating and becoming more comfortable in the darkness. And then now I help people walk through their own darkness. And it's such an honor. And so then my human design is, I'm a manifesting generator, and my profile is a 5/1, which has repeatedly come through as like, oh, it's because I'm a 5/1, and ends up happening with that dynamic is, and this also speaks a little bit to gene keys, which I don't know quite as much about, but is all informed, that I don't have a specific life purpose, which I'm one of the most rare types of beings. There's not specifically something that I am here to do. That means that I can just enjoy. However, within my ability to just enjoy, that comes from having cleared a lot of my own karmic debt. And then that, because everything is a quote unquote karmic mirror, I reflect back to people all of their shit. So often I will get people projecting at me whatever they're unwilling to see within themselves. But that only happens when they put me first up on this pedestal. I have not put myself there. I'm just me. They put me there. And then when I fail to live up to their unspoken expectations, which is inevitable, then they project all of their unhealed karmic wounding. But if I can remember that, my only job there is to remember that that's what's happening and not take it personally, and even have a little, oh, good, I'm so glad for you that you're burning through some of your karmic stuff. I'm going to keep going this way. I'm going to go over this direction, but good for you. It's hard in times when people are really coming at you with different things, and but with practice, it becomes easier to see that that's what's going on.
Thank you so much for sharing. I was getting chills a lot while you were talking. And again, just our Astrology 101 episode, we talked a little bit. My sun is in Pisces and how I've just disconnected to that. And I'll get back to sound healing because we could go in a million different directions with astrology and human design. But I thought to myself, yet again, how Tess expands me, because I said after that episode, my goal was to get more into the Pisces. And then also, Tess, Michelle and I, our sun and our rising, we both have that duality. So I'm Virgo and Pisces, which are opposite, and Michelle has the duality theme. And then, of course, the 5 lines in our profiles, which is where Karmic Mirror derives from.
Yep.
So cool.
Yeah.
I love hearing all of that. And again, I don't want to go take it too far down the road of astrology and human design, but so much resonance in that. And Allie and I were just talking this week about not attaching to the emotions of validation, or when someone really receives your work or what you put out there, whether it's, social media or all of the other things, but in specific, because social media can be so loud, and not getting so attached to that. And so I love what you said about, like, I just have to remember what I'm here, or, remember this aspect of myself. And that's my work. And so resonate with the 5th line, the projections, and having to, something I read it was either in your intake or it was on your website, about just coming back home. And I always really, that is such a powerful statement. I think I try to remember as well, as like, I can, have this space within and just remember to come back to it. That's so much of the work in itself, or at least what I'm experiencing. So I love the little tiny bit I learned about what got you into sound healing, but I want to hear from you. How did you get into sound healing? Because it's really, I will say no more.
Yeah, it is. It's an intense, potent little story that people, I've heard this about so many different aspects of my life, of like, oh my God, this could be a movie. And I'm like, yeah, by now at 37, I could have like a whole series, maybe 7 movies. So I was living in LA. I had gone to nutrition school when I was still in New York, born and raised in New York, was living there, really struggling a lot, and went through nutrition school, did a cross-country solo road trip. That was its own story moment. Got to LA and was working as a private chef for celebrities in LA. And I was really caught up in that whole scene and the validation, and it was really cool, and I was able to name drop, and just I was making a lot of money, and that was the first time in my entire life that I was making the money that I was. And I'm really so proud of myself. Now I am my future self to that version, but I paid off so much of my debt. I paid off like $80,000 in less than a year. And now looking back, I'm just like, oh, thank you, because I totally could have squandered that really quick. But aside from that, and because of all of the external validation and everything I was not aware of at the point, I was really still struggling in myself. And at this time, I had started the TBM work. I had started the TBM work in July or the end of June of 2020. So we were kind of in the heat of lockdown. And that was a big transformational point for me. That's what spurred this whole move. I was like, New York is not in alignment. It's never been alignment for me. I have to go find what else is out there in the world, and did the road trip. And so there was a little bit of this transformation energy starting, but then I got to LA and kind of got stuck in that materialism space, which is very interesting in its own way. And It was just after the new year of 2021, and I woke up like in the most excruciating pain ever. Got rushed to the emergency room and was told that I had a ruptured ovarian cyst. And it doesn't happen to a lot of people, but for those that it has, you can empathize. The ER doctor said that experience is more painful than natural childbirth. They had given me the highest level of morphine and I couldn't even tell. I was just like, why has no one given me anything for this? And they're like, you're maxed out. Like, we literally can't give you anything else. And I couldn't feel any support from that. That is when they diagnosed me with PCOS and endometriosis. So PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. And it's very common these days with all of the chemicals and the stress and unhealed trauma and et cetera that women and people with wombs are experiencing. And so both of my ovaries were covered in cysts, and then I had multiple pending rupture cysts. And so I was like, all right, I've gone through this once. I do not
talk
want to
about
experience
anxiety driving, right?
exactly.
Because it's the most pain you've ever had in your life. And now you're told, oh, this could happen again, pending
multiple ruptures. Yes. And so they scheduled me for what they deemed as emergency surgery, but it was still 4 months out from that date. And because I had to do MRIs and blood work, and they really had to understand what was going on. And they had found that one of these cysts was a grapefruit-sized cyst filled with endometriosis. So it is now the day after the initial ER trip where my cyst had ruptured, and I'm just back home. I know that this surgery is going to be happening, and I have all of these appointments coming up, and I'm literally just in bed scrolling on Instagram, recovering from the pain and the insane amount of cortisol and all of those hormones that were pumping through my body with that experience. And I've always been like a little, one of my best friends would say this, like that I was always like the witchy one. Like I was always a little into the moon and the nature and the herbalism and all of those different things.
Michelle and I always joke about the witchiness.
Yeah.
Not joke like haha, but
yes. Yeah, we always find each other.
Yes, we do. It's within our frequency. So I was a little bit there, but I wasn't really tapped into any of the healing experience that I have since had. And I'm scrolling on Instagram. I'm looking at the stories of this woman that I had been following that was just a business coach. She was just a regular business coach, helping people to grow to 6 figures, all of that, blah, blah, blah. I say that because I ended up doing her coaching and it was the biggest waste of money I've ever spent. But that's a story for another moment. But randomly from her Instagram story, she's just talking and then she goes, look what I just bought. And she pulls into the screen this like bright yellow singing bowl. And I have never seen a singing bowl before this moment. I had known nothing about sound healing. I am not keyed into any of that. And it was like every cell in my body just turned on. It was just like, oh my God, I need this. This is what is going to heal me. And I sent her a DM and I was just like, what is this? Where did you get this? And she explained, this is a singing bowl. I got it down in Laguna Beach. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm an hour and 40 minutes away. I contact the woman that she bought the bowl from and set up an appointment for the next day. And so I drive down to Laguna. I'm still in so much pain. I literally had like tape on my body from the ER. And so I'm like all taped up and like hunched over and like sore. And
do you feel like because you had been doing the work and kind of understanding pings a little bit at this point that you felt, so for those who don't know, to be magnetic is a process of manifestation, and we could have 70 million episodes on that whole process for sure. But I was just curious because I think like a lot of people that connect, you just felt like so called. So was that work kind of a precursor to also feeling driven?
Yes. And I've always been doing that kind of thing. But I didn't have the language for it. And yes, it was like a ping. That's the language that TBM has coined. TBM is fantastic. It absolutely changed my life. It did not create manifestation. It just helps people to understand all of these different pieces. So I had always had that ability and been tuned into my intuition and really been able to take action on my intuition. But now being tuned into their languaging of the process, yes, I was like, oh, okay, this is something that's in alignment for me. I was really struggling as a chef. There were some issues that were happening already. So I go to Laguna, I go to the store, I have my appointment, I go meet with Rana, and she ends up closing her store for me. And I was there for 5 hours. And she's just like watching me and like looking really puzzled and like, are you sure you don't know anything about this? And I was just like, no, but at the same time, she has hundreds of bowls all over her shop. And I'm like pointing and like, oh, this one is this gemstone and this is going to help with that. And she usually doesn't let people play the bowls unless they have a lesson because they're very expensive and take technique. But she was just like, will you just play this? Like, I'm just really curious. And I start playing and she was like, I've been doing this for 15 years and you play better than I do in like under 10 minutes. You need to do this. And I was like, no, I'm a chef. This isn't what I do. I'm just here to buy these 2 bowls. I had found these 2 bowls that I wanted and I'm just doing it to heal myself. I also learned in that moment that the Crystal Tones bowls are about $2,000 per bowl. And I had no preconceived notion of that. And so I thought maybe I was going to spend $500 per bowl and that was going to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to invest. But then it was $2,000 per bowl and I had fallen in love with these 2. And I was like, I can't say no now. And because I had been working as a chef, I had a bunch of money saved. And so it was an okay investment for me to make at that time. So that experience happens. I go back and I lose all of my chef clients, just gone. Because within that world, they don't care about me. I'm as important as the teapot on the stove. We've never had an actual conversation while we've been working for them for 6 days a week. Like, it's, oh, you're not available? I already got someone else. Best of luck to you. And that really hurt this wounded part of myself that had this story being played out for my whole life of that people just use me, they take what they need from me, and then they leave me abandoned. And that was something that I really needed to work through. And so I also am aware within the TBM space that all of this is happening for alignment, that even before my main client let me go, I knew it was coming. I knew in my body, I could feel that I was having this physical reaction, and this is my own process. And through TBM, I was really able to see what my process is. When my body reacts in a certain way, I know something's coming, and that's helping me to prepare for that. And so when I got the call from their house manager saying like, oh, effective immediately, you're no longer needed, we wish you the best of luck, I started laughing because I knew it was coming. I already knew. And so I was just like, yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, click. And
I do not mean to keep bringing it back to me, but I'm giggling. Yeah. It's just so affirming because my corporate America job, that my position was eliminated, I had this feeling, and I told my partner at the time, I'm like, I don't know why, I just feel like my boss is going to let me go. There was no reason to believe why that would happen. Mm-hmm. And all week I'm joking about it. Oh, didn't get laid off, making a joke of it. And then come Friday. So again, you're just blowing my mind, and it's just really why you're such a great guest, because again, for me, selfishly, my mind goes to, oh, you have to start paying attention to what your body feels like in those moments. That's what I'm taking away from what you're saying here.
It is. And it's a really beautiful example of observation and validation. Because when I had the same feeling that I'm going to be let go, I was processing, and it was confusing at first, and like, why do I feel this way? And oh my God, I'm not going to have any money. And so I was talking about it with my mom and with friends, and everyone was like, oh, you'll be fine. They're not going to let you go. Don't let that come into your head. Like, there's nothing going on here. Like, they love you. Think back to all the times that you've made great meals for them, and like, it's going to be fine. But they, in that response, are not validating my intuition. my feeling. I'm curious if your partner, while you were expressing, oh, I think I'm going to be fired, if they were like, oh, you'll be fine, don't worry about it, that's silly.
It was almost verbatim, like, babe, I love you, but what reasons, almost similar,
Right.
what
You're
reasons
being
do you
paranoid.
have to believe that, right?
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
you know, when you go back to that logical sense of, there's literally no reason to believe that. And this is about you and your journey, but on the sames, it's like when you're at that leveling up place, the universe is literally going to just take away the things that aren't on your
Yes.
highest path for you.
Yes, but it's also just a greater conversation about that we get deemed as being paranoid. When we have intuition that doesn't make logical sense, people outside of us try to convince us to not listen to ourselves. And then when it actually happens, there often is this like point of confusion where it's like, wait a minute, I knew that this was happening, and I need to listen to myself, and you need to give me the space, or at least be neutral about it. And if I need to process that I feel that this is going to happen, I don't need you to talk me out of that sensation. Just listen and say, well, we'll see. Like, I don't need you to cheer me up and pretend that everything's going to be okay. We'll see. And if you're right, that's freaking cool. And I was right. And I laughed about it because it was like, oh my God, I am becoming a master at this, of observing myself and being able to predict these things. So just a little word of encouragement because it's not selfish, Allie. I mean, this is, you keep saying like, oh, it's like me, but you have no idea how many messages I got after the TBM episode of people being like, oh my God, I am you. And so people that listen to your podcast even are going to have those same similar connections in their own way. And so it's,
well, thanks for empowering. And I think what comes to mind, I'm a 3-5. And so literally I was listening to a podcast the other day of, that's the thing I'm working on, is the 3-5. You're literally meant to share your life experiences. So you can even see me here real time. Thank you for giving me that permission. I'm starting to be like, it's not about me. That's selfish. This isn't about me. And
that's programming.
Thank you for inviting me and welcoming me into the conversation. And so I just want to be respectful of that too.
I get it, but we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So to wrap up this story is 4 months later, I went in for surgery and everything had healed itself. My OB came to me after I came out of anesthesia, and he was just like, I don't know what you did, but keep doing that. So I started my little journey of, okay, now I have to start again. And I don't know anything about this world. And so I'm going to go live every Monday and start doing 8-minute meditations on Instagram. And I'm going to get a part-time job at a front desk of a yoga studio and check people in and hope that they need a last-minute sub and there's nobody else there, so I'll do it. And I had already had my yoga and meditation training certification from when I was in my mid-20s. And so it was like, oh, maybe this is why I did that back then, because now I can call upon that information. And it really all happened for me. It happened in the moment. I could have very, very easily felt like a victim and felt that it was out of my control, or felt scared and that I was being punished, or whatever, all the things that we can think of. But every single step of the way, I knew that I was being divinely protected. Even the fact that I had just been fired from my job, the story of laughing, I had just been fired literally 24 hours before this rupture experience had happened. I qualified for emergency Medicaid. And so the emergency room, the ambulance, the surgery, the MRIs, everything was paid for, was covered. So and I was aware of all of this, and thanks to TBM, it really helped to prime my ability to be aware. And it is always in our highest alignment, whether you choose to see it or not. And we always have these, like, I kind of see it as like you're running in a circle, and you have all of these moments to escape the circle. But then often people get scared and they're like, oh, I don't know what that's like. And so I'm going to turn back into the circle and I'm just going to keep going around. And a lot of time I will get people, it's mostly in DMs. They're not at the place yet where they want to work with me. and I don't know what to do, and I just keep going through the same thing, and so I just keep sending out my top 3 suggestions, and then they don't take action, and then 2 months later, they're sending me the exact same message, and but what are some specific questions that I can ask myself to understand what the root is? That's somebody that just messaged me on Instagram yesterday, and it's like, well, it's the same things I've been telling you for the last 7 months, so it's up to you, and it's up to all of us to actually make that change. But there's so many factors that go into it, from our nervous system and our programming and societal conditioning, which is part of the programming, and it can be overwhelming. So don't be too hard on yourself.
I love the question, like, what is the question you need to ask yourself most right now? Because it can be, you may not have an answer right away, but I'm such a believer in like just planting that seed of like, what do you most need to know? And you find out. And I think so many little light sparks in my brain as you were talking as well. And I just wanted to, really listen in, but gosh, there's so much. And, thinking about bringing it back, like the curiosity of Gemini, and that almost like I always look at Geminis as both super curious and also kind of fearless in just exploring the things. And then you have that wisdom of Pisces. And so I kept thinking back to, you said like, I know nothing about this space, right? Going into sound bowls, but then at the same time, your body knew so much. Your body knew how to play the sound bowls naturally. I mean, and tell me if I'm saying this incorrectly, playing the sound bowls,
Go
but
ahead.
because one of the things I was curious about is, do people kind of train in the way that, well, of course they have to train, but, just like anything, I thought about it like a musical instrument and honing that skill, and also how some people come to musical instruments and they can learn by ear, not necessarily by reading notes. And so how that was so natural because it was something so innate in your bones and your body pulling you towards this thing. And I think that's so cool, that to bring it back to what you said about being an observer and just learning to observe the way that you could, that you were being almost invited to trust fall, and trusting that all of these things were going to be in place to hold you through it, or to, shift you towards where you are now, which who knew? Also, so cool. I just really resonate with a lot of your story. We started doing the To Be Magnetic, I think probably in the same time during COVID, and in that summer.
Michelle introduced me to be Magnetic when we were in life coach certification test.
Yes.
So
And that just all the people, right? Like all of the different expanders. And that's where I haven't had a lot of experience with sound healing, which I'm so excited to learn more about. But I remember encountering Jasmine Hemsley on Instagram, who was also she would do like a noon sound bowl healing session on Instagram. And I just had no clue what it was, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to turn on my Instagram live and listen to her and let it do what it's going to do. And then, of course, I was so expanded by her for other reasons. I saw this other woman who was part Filipino, and I really resonated with that because I hadn't seen a lot of, representation in the wellness space, at least. And so there's just so many cool synchronicities. But I really want to hear more about sound healing in general. There's so much. I mean, you tell us, where do you want to start?
Well, I'll start as if I'm in a group class and the majority of the people haven't experienced sound before. So sound healing is a type of meditation. It is a meditative practice that includes sound, and the sounds are produced by various instruments, or it can be electronic. There are a lot of electronic sound baths happening right now. The instruments that I am using are the Crystal Tones singing bowls. I have a gong and I have some chimes, and that's pretty much what's happening within my set that I use, but I also have been reconnecting with medicinal drums as well, and that hasn't fully made its way into my sound healing sessions, but is a different form of sound healing that I am exploring in its own way, and maybe they'll merge. Within that space of meditation, what to expect is an hour session. That is typical, that you would go in for an hour where there is an introduction by the facilitator. sometimes a guided meditation, and then you experience the sound for typically about 40 to 45 minutes solid. And then there is a space where you are brought out of the meditation, welcomed back into your space in your body before you head out back into your own life. So within a 45-minute sound session, you are instructed to lay down. Typically, you will have your head toward the practitioner and you have your eyes closed. And so if you're in a studio, often the studios will have bolsters or different cushions and blankets, and it's really about making your body feel as comfortable as possible because you are going to be laying down for almost an hour. Always, you can move, you can shift, you can roll over onto your side. Some people prefer to sit up. However, a sound healing experience is not something that you watch. Because there is a performance happening by the practitioner, but it is visually entertaining, but then you're not actually getting the healing aspects of it, because what's happening when you're laying down, your eyes are closed and you're receiving, not only are you in this meditative space, but a lot is shifting within your nervous system. Most of us are running through our sympathetic, which is fight, flight, freeze responses, that we have a lot of cortisol running through. It is from the space of where we have all of our stored trauma. So we will literally store trauma and different experiences in our body for decades until it is released. And that can happen through different somatic practices only. That does not happen through talk therapy and cognitive therapy. The body is holding more information than the subconscious or the conscious mind is. So within a sound healing, if you imagine that I'm sitting up in the front of a space, I have all of my instruments, you're lying down in front of me with your head toward me. I begin to play, and these instruments create pure harmonic resonant frequencies. And so the resonance aspect is important because each of our bodies are known as a composite frequency. Every single person on this planet, every animal, every plant, they have their own individual unique frequency. So my frequency is unique to me, Michelle, yours is to you, Ali, yours is to you. That happens because every part that makes up your body has its then own unique frequency. So your kidney has its own frequency. Your fingernails have their own frequency. Your skin has its own frequency. And so if we think about all the parts of our body resonating in its own way, all together, that creates a composite frequency. And that is my personal frequency that I sent out into the world. Not only then is that frequency informed by the parts of your body, but it's informed by that trauma that's stored within your body. It's informed by all of the subconscious information that's stored, all of the conscious information. It's then impacted by the things that are external to us. So a composite frequency is malleable. It's changeable. It is influenced by things outside of it. And it can go through a process known as entrainment. And when something is entrained, it is pulled to match the frequency that's outside of it. So my favorite example, and we all have these different aspects of clair senses. So the clair senses are attached to our 5 main physical senses, and then a couple other more metaphysical outside of us senses. We have sight, taste, scent, feeling, hearing. And we all, human beings, have clairsentience. Clairsentience is connected to our sense of feeling. When you walk into a space, let's say you're walking into a party, real quick, you can get an energetic scan of what is the vibe of that party. You walk in, everyone's having a great time. Oh my gosh, I'm into this vibe. This feels good. Also, we've probably all experienced this. You walk into a party, something 30 seconds before you walked in happened, and you walk in and you're like, whoa, what happened in here?
I don't know what I just walked into, but
exactly.
Yeah, that feeling.
And so our body will then it's possible to be entrained into that experience unless you have the awareness, unless you decide this is not the energy that I want to be connected to, and so I'm going to leave. If you have a person, let's say it's your parent, and they are more dominant than you are, you can end up being entrained to them. Your actual partner, a life partner perhaps. People say like, oh, life partners end up looking similar and talking similar and having a similar tone of voice. They are entrained to each other. They're then sharing a frequency. An ambulance that goes by is going to affect your frequency. Anything outside of us has the ability. Food can affect and shift our frequency. Stress, we're constantly living with stress. So we have to do practices, participate in things that are going to help us shift back into our natural frequency, clearing out all of the clutter, making sure that you're doing shadow work and parts work and getting to know all of the pieces of yourself to release stored trauma, because all of that is then being infused and radiating from your body. So within that sound bath, coming back to it, sound frequency travels 4.5 times faster through water than it does through the air. So as soon as you hear the sound, you can just imagine that your body is flooded with frequency down to a cellular level. And because these instruments are fixed, harmonic, resonant frequencies, they entrain our cells to match them. They are the most natural frequency, and it often feels like that coming home sensation. Your body knows it. It's made of that. It's like, oh, right, this is what I am. And so when you can shift back into those harmonic spaces, and then an hour-long sound bath that lasts for 2 to 5 days in your system, your cells will continue to vibrate from that space, depending on how you care for yourself. If you're drinking lots of water after, that helps. If you're sleeping and you're getting movement and you're not in stressful situations, that will help make it last longer. But you can also engage in these practices infinitely. There's not too much sound healing. This is where I will insert the big asterisk. Your body is flooded with frequency. There is no place for you to hide. And so in sound healing, this is one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most powerful transformative tools without using plant medicine and psychedelics, because you cannot hide from yourself. All of those fears and programming and things that you are avoiding your entire life are going to come to the surface. And if you are not in a place that you are willing to acknowledge them, you're going to have a freak out. And this happens often, not in a single sound healing session. That's not going to be the case. I would say if you were experiencing sound maybe every day, things will start to come up. People that are going into sound healing and doing trainings and learning and becoming facilitators, that's a whole other level. And that's where I see people freak out. They are not at a place where, one, they can hold their own energy. That's number one. You have to get to a place where you are able to hold your own energy. And the majority of people on the planet right now cannot do that. Then you're also holding the energy of these instruments, literally the frequency that's being emitted. And then you have to be able to hold the frequency of the person or people that you are facilitating for. And that is a whole lot of energy that is your responsibility. And so a lot of tending needs to happen in order to be able to step into that space.
Thank you for the detail. And there's so many facts and figures through some of the podcasts that I've listened to on sound healing. And one was that your voice was made just for you. Can you talk more about that? I found that really interesting.
So our voice is our audible representation of our frequency. It's as simple as that. And so as you shift into alignment, your voice will change. Your voice, being the audible representation of your frequency, is informed by all of the composite aspects of your body, the health And let's take the kidney. The kidney has its own frequency. Its health of the kidney, its size and shape that's unique to me, is then going to radiate to my spinal column. And my spinal column has its own frequency and is informed by all of these things. And all of the pieces that make up my body then are resonating into my voice. And so the voice is literally coming from the chambers within your body. And then as you shift and you heal and you integrate and you are eating and sleeping better and your physical body is doing better, but also you're understanding and releasing trauma somatically from being stored within your hips or your shoulders or your throat, and you're clearing your chakras, and all of this is happening, your voice will change because your frequency is becoming more clear. And so often I can hear we all hear people's voice, and I know if that's their real voice or if it's not their real voice. It's immediately understood, and it's understood by all of us. And similar to that party situation, when we come into contact with a person, we are reading all of this information. We are scanning everything. We are understanding without actually knowing everything about them. Let's say the classic story of, oh, I want a boyfriend, and I met this guy, and he said he's not like super open and ready for a relationship, but like he brings me flowers and he's so nice. And then like, oh my God, he's cheating on me. And like, but then I went back to him again. And how many people, and I've been that girl, and this happens with men, and this happens with every person at some point, perhaps, unless you've had a very, very healthy upbringing. That is a choice. You know that frequency exists in that person, and you are choosing to engage in that experience. But most people keep themselves in that victim place, and they pretend that they had no idea that this was happening. And they're attracted to that partner because they have other experiences living within their frequency. And that's why that partner even knows that, oh, she's going to fall for this. That person's not consciously thinking this, but they know, oh yeah, I can do that with her because she's got the same thing going on that I do. It's all unspoken, and we're all reading each other constantly. As you begin to shift, you'll be able to see this more often. And it's all stemming from that observation point.
Wow. I think it's so cool to talk about the nervous system, talk about healing and all of this through the lens of sound healing, because we talked about language for things, but this gives a whole other world of language and way to really understand what's happening on a cellular level, what's happening on a spiritual, emotional, and physical level. And it's super fascinating. And I kept thinking about so many things, but I was thinking about, walking into a room, my strongest sense is touch. And I always say like the first couple minutes when I walk into a party or walk into a room is getting like, kind of like recalibrating, it feels like, because my senses are so overwhelmed by everything that I'm taking in that moment. And so I have to literally remind myself, and I have to like breathe and do whatever I can to really feel clear, at least as clear as I can in those settings, because I will pick up on so much and just feel really like, hold on, I can't have a real conversation, or I can't eat or do the things until I feel in that space again and I can actually listen and be present. And so it's fascinating to think about that in that way, and also about, the frequency, the sound healing of purging all of the things that we are holding on to unconsciously and consciously. And so I kept having that visual of like things exiting the body in that way. And it's really, and also that it's, I think, different. And this is one of the questions I was going to ask too, but I was thinking differently from other modalities that sometimes taking something external into the body or using a practice outside of the body versus allowing your inside, this kind of inside job to happen. And so I really love that. And I was curious about, how does sound healing work with these other modalities? What are some of the things that you notice in your practice?
Sound healing is so accessible for so many types of modalities, and making sure that you're really in integrity with what you're including as well, because not only I hope people are going through the actual deep learning and understanding of sound, you need to do the same thing with these other modalities. So because of TBM, actually, I was so fascinated by hypnotherapy that I got trained in hypnotherapy, and same with somatics. And so I did a somatics training, and other people include Reiki. If they are drawn to Reiki and they're Reiki practitioners, I've collaborated with massage therapists, and there are a lot of aqua therapy facilitators here in Costa Rica. And so there's a whole opportunity to include sound with that. I've been working more with local Costa Rican healers and in their ceremony settings, and including song medicine. And it's really infinite what you can include sound with, because sound is such a natural expression. And again, we all understand and know this. What I would recommend for understanding yourself as a healer, if it's somebody that's, okay, I am an EMDR therapist. That was one of our sound healer training students that just came to the June training. She is an EMDR therapist, that's her practice. And she was seeing that, okay, I need to start implementing other modalities because there's only so much that I can do in this one lane. And that's really wonderful to notice, okay, what I'm doing might not actually be enough, and what else am I drawn to? It's not about seeing what's happening on Instagram and picking out like, oh, this looks cool, this girl sitting with all of these singing bowls in a shot. Most of those people have no idea what they're doing, and it's actually causing more harm in the sound healing world. And I see that all the time with people that I do sessions with. It's almost like I'm like a recovery sound healer person from their traumatic experience with an untrained person. But you need to know yourself. You need to understand the aspects of yourself and what's unique to you, because every single sound healer is going to be unique, just as we are our own unique vibratory beings. So I am fascinated by science and math and the body. My yoga teacher training that I did when I was 26 was a 6-month-long anatomy yoga certification, and we were studying medical textbooks. I didn't know why then, but now I do. I have a whole lot of information about the physical anatomy of the body. I went to nutrition school. I studied nutrition and what's happening to our cells. I have a whole lot of information about that as well. And so then when I could see, oh, hypnotherapy and somatics, and now I understand myself more, and that's all included with what I offer. So as you're going out into the world, you might have your area of expertise, or maybe you're just starting and you want to start with sound and you don't even know what to add with it later. Give yourself time. We do our level 1 through the School of Resonance, which is the sound healing training school that I have with my friend Kate. We do a level 1, and the level 2 isn't for a year and a half later. That's the first opportunity for the level 2. We had 17 students in this last training, and all of them are like, we want to do the level 2. If you had the level 2 starting like this next week, we'd do it. And it's like, no, you have to go out and practice and integrate and keep learning from other people and keep reading books and infusing your practice and doing somatic work and activating your voice and all of these things that we're teaching in this training. It takes time to implement. I didn't go through a sound healing training. There still are not a lot of sound healing trainings, and almost 3 years ago, there was not that either for me. So I had to study on my own and then work with mentors. And so I sought out different mentors to teach me the pieces that I was missing. Rana was a big mentor for me, the woman that I bought my bowls from, and she could see the potential within me, and so she played to my strengths. And that's also really important, is that you identify what your strengths are, because it's not one size fits all, and we're not in public school learning systems anymore. That's like an old paradigm thing. So really dive deep and play into what works for you. There were some students at the training that they just wanted to talk to me because I know about anatomy and I know about the science and the math and all of this. And then other students were like, oh, I want to talk to Kate because she's all about the voice. And I want to open up my voice and I want to sing with my bowls. And she does yoga nidra, and that's a different, similar to hypnosis, but different form. So we all have these abilities to complement each other if we can really understand who we are and why we are doing these things.
Just going to say, I really love that you hold off on the level 2 training, because I think that's a big challenge in a lot of spaces, but especially in wellness right now and in the current, world that we live in. People want things so quickly. They want to learn and they want to intellectualize all of this knowledge before, and you're an embodiment mentor. So before they even learn to really, for it to use, resonate in their whole body. And it seems so counterintuitive to the art of resonance and letting your body harmonize to your authentic frequency. It seems, but that's just what we're so conditioned to want to, like, I want to be the expert now and I want to teach people now. And so I think it's really important, one, having people who are making these offerings with integrity and allowing that space to actually embody what you want to share with the world, and know yourself, know your own way of teaching, of all of the things. So that's really important. And also, just to really quickly note for anyone listening, I think earlier you had said, like, I had to start over, right? And I think, and obviously we know, like, you weren't starting over from scratch, but I think most people can get in that place, especially anyone who's lived through the last 5 years knows, or can resonate a little bit with the idea of feeling like I have to start over, and then actually looking back at your story and seeing how many things happen along the way, that you were starting over with so much knowledge, like your yoga teacher certification, like, all of the things, just knowing it, understanding your intuition throughout your life. And so I think that's really expansive and inspirational for people to continue to hear that even when we feel like we are starting over or turning over a new leaf, there's so many things that have set us up, like, for that moment that we may not even have noticed.
Well said.
Really cool. Tess, I heard a little bit in your voice that you can do a lot of damage, and I'm sure you're passionate about that as a healer.
Yes. Oh, God.
Michelle, I think, had posed this question, like, what are some misconceptions about sound healing? And so maybe one is that everybody can just pick up a bowl and be a sound healer, might be one, but elaborate on that for us a little bit, and maybe any other misconceptions that those who haven't dove deep into sound healing.
All right, we're going in. I am very passionate about this. Thank you for seeing that in me. And that's actually why Kate and I created our sound healer training, why we created the School of Resonance, is because we were seeing this happening. We're both from upstate New York, and then we met each other when we were living in LA and working as sound healers, and kind of came together on this little grain of sand, and feeling really almost like we don't know what to do about this, and is there something to be done, and how, and what does that look like? And what I was seeing was very prevalent: become a sound healer this weekend. Do not do that kind of training. If you think you are a person of integrity to any degree, please do not do weekend-long trainings and think that then that gives you the right to be a sound healer. I will go on a limb, and any other sound healer would agree with me. Sound healing is as deeply important and real and transformative as medicine, as being a doctor. We are shifting things within the body at such a deep degree. And if you don't know what you're doing, think of a doctor who does not know what they're doing. That is not good. You can really, really cause a lot of damage. You can cause people to go into seizures. You can cause people to have very traumatic flashbacks that they and you are not prepared to hold. It's infinite what can happen. Migraines, jaw clenching. It can be very anxiety producing. I've had people that are on the neurodivergent spectrum and I know, and I can see it, or maybe they're not even in a neurodivergent space, but they're just not open to healing. And they'll walk into a session, and as they're getting seated, I'm like, they're going to leave. In 7 minutes, they're going to leave. And boop, up and out. I'm reading their energy. I know what is happening. But if you're not keyed in to that degree and know, like, okay, I see this guy is going to leave. So in my introduction, I'm going to give the instruction. And this is usually typical, but sometimes it doesn't make it in always. And if this is uncomfortable for you, please leave. There's no harm. I want you to listen to yourself. This is all about making yourself comfortable. And if this is an uncomfortable situation, please leave. The door is over here to the left, and you can make your way out quietly. There's a lot of factors that go into facilitating for people, and knowing what you're doing is, I feel like, the basic line of integrity. There is another aspect that you were talking about, Michelle, of like, I want to do this now. I am living from a desperate place. I have no idea who I am. I'm lost. I have no money, and I need something to fix and save me. So I'm going to look on Instagram. I'm going to see this on TikTok. I'm going to go do this because X, Y, and Z person look like they're making a lot of money. They look successful. They have this many followers, and that means I'm going to make this much money, etc. All of that is fake now. We know people can buy followers and it's not real. Even I have like a very engaged following that I've built over many, many years, and people DM me sometimes with like, oh my God, you must be making like $40,000 a month. And I'm like, where do you think this is reality? So there is this delusion of what is going to save you, and that desperation is going to put you in a place where, oh, I need to do that weekend-long training, and I'm going to go buy these really not good quality bowls for $300 and then just go start doing sound healing. And then that is what is going to cause injury. So another piece within the sound healing aspect is you are a channel. Whatever is happening within your composite frequency as the facilitator is literally going to be riding like a piggyback on the frequency that's being emitted by the sound. And so anything that is unhealed within you is literally being transferred and connected to the cells of the people that are receiving the sound. So if you are not in a place where I went into like, you have to be able to hold your own energy and then the sound and then the other people. But if you cannot do those things, all of that information from all of your wounding and your bullshit and whatever is just being sent out into the masses. So it is so, so, so important to do the work in order to step into this space. The other piece of this is appropriation. And let's give like a big, big stage to this. There is so much appropriation happening. Sound medicine is an ancient form of healing, and as well as a lot of other modalities that are happening. Reiki, cacao ceremony. I want to take a moment for cacao ceremony. Please, if you are not of Latin culture descent, please stop facilitating anything that has to do with cacao. It is not for you. You can receive cacao. If you want to have a cacao drink in the morning and sit with yourself and do your meditation and receive that beautiful plant wisdom, go ahead. Ooh, and I'm covered in goosebumps right now. And cacao ceremony doesn't exist. Cacao ceremony was never a thing that existed. White people made it up and started producing these cacao ceremonies and then creating these online cacao facilitator training things after receiving cacao from their one trip to Peru and having a life-changing experience. Please stop doing that. It's not your place, and it's also okay to know that that is not for you and that there are other people that, guess what? you can hire them to come and serve you cacao. You can hire them to come into your space and your trainings and your yoga certifications and your breath work and whatever it is that you're wanting to do to pair cacao. You can hire those people to come in, and then they can continue to share that message that actually this is not real, but we're going to sit together in community and talk about this a little bit more deeply. Another big one is the use of sage or plant bundle incense. Having a whole stick of sage and burning the entire top of that sage smudge stick is so disrespectful. It is the epitome of waste and materialism and consumption. What is more meant to be is to receive this bundle of sage and unwrap it, and then take one leaf of the sage and burn that per time that you would like the smoke to be emitted, not burning the entire stick, because that is so much cultivation and growth that has been happening. So I'm illuminating these two very small things underneath this bigger conversation of sound and then also all of these other healing modalities. So please just take the time to understand and learn, where is this coming from? Where did this medicine originate? How did they use it? Is it something that these communities have spoken and said actively, yes, you can use this, please share this and use this? Or are they asking, please leave this to us and invite us into the space, and then move from that space? But the big hats with the big rims and the feathers and the painting, and it, just think about what you're doing. Think about the way that you're presenting yourself.
I really appreciate you bringing that up. And what came up for me when you were talking about that is just, there's a lot of ignorance out there. And I think there's such a stigmatization around just the word ignorant, especially in today's climate. And it's okay if you're ignorant. Right now, honestly, Tess, I'm that sage person.
Mm-hmm.
Until I was in Chris Corsini, who's an astrologer, and he never even said why, but he's like, you don't need a whole bundle. Just take the little thing, of the sage and burn it and around. And now I'm here. And so I've started doing that, but the intentionality and the understanding, and that's why I'm so pleased to have had you on our podcast today, because even for me, I'm like, oh, there's a real reason why we should be doing that, and just spiritually and all good things. So that's what kind of stuck out for me is, I was said sage bundle person and ignorant and not intentionally, right?
Yeah.
Because that's not how I lead my life. But I'm just so pleased that you shared some of those things with us also. I think it'll be eye-opening.
And same for me. I mean, I'm a Latina girl that grew up in upstate New York and grew up in white schools, and the majority, I mean, I make jokes with my mom still that there's like, oh, there must be 3 Black people that live in Saratoga. And she's like, no, there's more than that. And it's like, yeah, I'm exaggerating, but it is still, the majority is white. And there is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with being a white person. And I am half white. And there are aspects to that are real, that when you're in, it's almost like a bubble, and you just don't see and you don't hear these other perspectives. And so you just don't know. And that's okay. It's totally fine. And you will have these experiences that you butt up against. And I had experiences like that in college where it was like, oh my God, I thought that I didn't realize that this was a thing. And going through my own reactions of like, but that's not what I meant. And hearing like, but that's what you're doing. And having to come to terms with that in myself. And that's where most of the people that have this resistance reaction of like, oh, but I didn't mean that. But it's like, but it's okay, I hear, but that is what you were doing. And it's okay, and you're not going to be banished. And I do feel that the cancel culture thing has passed, and that we are moving into this space of, as my friend and business partner Kate says, that we are failing forward, as if when we fall, we are falling forward, but we fail forward and we learn. And if you can take the time to learn and to just acknowledge that, like, oh wow, I really fucked up there. Sorry. I'm gonna figure that out, and I'm gonna keep going.
Ian Van Sant had Nick Cannon on, and it's on like council culture, because he said a lot of times the people who are canceled are the ones who need the most counseling.
Right.
And, insert education, awareness, exposure, whatever that may be, right?
Yeah.
But so just very interesting topics.
It keeps coming back to the integrity that you spoke on, because that's the truth of it for me anyways, or at least how I'm seeing things is, if you're curious about different modalities, if you're curious about different lineages, it may not be your place to be the expert, because it's not, because it isn't. And also that discomfort of being corrected, that's so needed. First of all, we all need to be a little bit more uncomfortable and be okay with it. And maybe that's an invitation. Like I always think, one, I sometimes feel this like bubbling anger when I feel things culturally, where I'm like, God, everyone is doing this thing and no one is, they're all just regurgitating the same words. And where is it coming from? And it seems untrustworthy in so many ways. And then it starts to, build up that little like heat. And I think, what if you just got curious about your own lineage and your own roots, and started exploring that? Because how much more potent would your, quote, if it were, if you were a healer or in any, but just using that context, how much more potent and powerful would your medicine be for yourself if it was really connected to something? And so I always think about that. Like if you're feeling called, maybe it isn't to do all of the things, like you said, that you see on Instagram, but it's actually inviting you to look deeper into your own roots, your own history, and understand, like, what is it that I could tap into that feels more real, more authentic to me and my story. And so I really am happy that we got to talk about that, because it could be its own episode. It could be a whole series of learning to live and act in integrity, and be more, curious and comfortable with people reflecting back to you the things that maybe, that's the whole point of it, of Karmic Mirror, right? It's like we're always reflecting back, and you're not always going to get the most beautiful, perfect version of yourself reflected back. And if it is, then maybe we're not going deep enough. My July pull for my tarot was all about, what am I moving away from? And for me, it was a lot of like starting to move further away from these surface level interactions, and not completely, but really, being intentional about my time and energy. And so I love this conversation.
One thing before you move on that you were saying at one point said all the things, and it made me remember this one situation. And this is like an archetype of healer where they do all the things. It's like, oh, I'm a yoga teacher and a breathwork facilitator and a Reiki master, and I do sound healing, and I have an aromatherapy line, and I'm a light language channeler, and I facilitate cacao, and whoa, you cannot be all of those things. Like actually, tangibly, literally, it is impossible to be all of those things and to do them well. So I would implore you to like just hone it back a little bit, pull it back, because often with these people, when it's like, oh, you're a sound healer too, so then da 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 da, and then they get this blank glaze over their eyes, and I'm like, oh, you're not a sound healer. You're pretending to be a sound healer. You just put a mallet around some bowls and make sound, and probably not well. And I have left multiple sound baths. If I'm in it, I actually don't receive sound healing often because they're usually not good. And I will leave a session if it is not good. And so I give everyone listening permission, if you're ever in a sound bath or a massage or any situation that it doesn't feel good for your body, leave. It is totally fine. It doesn't matter. That person might get upset, but who cares? They're not doing what they need to be doing correctly, and that's a lesson for them.
Yeah.
Other than just energetically feeling that, Tess, how would someone know the difference between an experienced sound healer? Other than we're introducing you to our audience today, so you have found one if you've been calling one in. But how would someone who's trying to explore might know the difference if they're trying to get into sound healing, and especially the importance of I'm really pleased to hear that you have people coming to you after poor experiences, but I know that for a lot of people out there, that might not be the case, and therefore they're missing out on this beautiful modality. But how can you tell the difference?
Yeah. The number one, I would say the biggest one that's illuminated is the level of sound. If someone is playing either way too loud that it's uncomfortable for you, or it's too soft that you're like, what is happening? And you're feeling any amount of confusion as to what's going on, that's going to be like the biggest illuminating factor. When people play too loud, and what I specifically within the training, and this is a very important piece, and I am able to teach it well, which plays to my strengths, is displacing yourself. And as I say that, there's multiple meanings, I guess, within that, because one, you do have to displace yourself from what I was speaking to earlier to whatever information that you have within yourself is going to be transferred. So you literally have to remove yourself from your physical vessel as you are facilitating, and that takes a skill. But then also placing your auditory ability. So I need to know, I'm sitting here right behind all of the instruments. It's going to be the loudest where I am, but I need to know what it sounds like to that person way over in the back corner. And that is going to change depending on your environment, depending on the acoustic space. So if I'm in like this big conference center room, I have to play completely differently than I would in someone's private home living room. Or if I'm out at the beach and it's open air. I don't often do that because open air is really tricky. But there needs to be an ability to know what every single person in that experience is hearing and feeling within their body. And if I can't confidently do that, I'm not ready to be facilitating for large groups. And often people that are inexperienced, they tend to play so loud that the sound is naturally going to feel encompassing, like it is washing over and almost holding you. But if it is overwhelming you to the point that it is not just a moment, because sometimes I'll do an overwhelming sound for 10, 15 seconds, but if it is the duration of the experience, they're not really tuned into what's happening within the body and how it is being received. You need to be aware that, we all hear differently. All of our bodies are different. And so if it is maybe an upper level to some person, it could be extremely loud even to another person. And so finding that range where this is loud enough to be comfortable for most people hearing. If it is beyond that, or often people will play and their bowls literally start to shake, and you can hear the mallet skipping around the outside of the bowl. What's happening is the volume, the amplitude of the sound frequency that's being emitted from that bowl is higher than what the bowl can sustain. And so what can happen is the bowl can literally explode. If you keep playing past that point, the bowl can shatter. And why would you want to subject someone's ears and body and cells to that? But they don't know, and they're just going around and they're playing. And then there are other factors of the cycle of resolution. And I don't know, I haven't done the full deep dive of if I have come up with this phrase or not. TBD, I don't think I have, but it seems too obvious for me to have made that up, where it starts out really nice. It's like ooh, this is nice. This feels good. And it's going for a while. Maybe it even gets better for a moment. And then it starts to be like, that's a little off. That sounds strange. Oh, I'm feeling these different things in my body. That's different. I'm not sure if I like it, but I can't really tell, to whoa, what's happening? This is weird. This feels strange. Maybe this feels dark. I've had people say, oh, that was the bad part of the trip. It's oh, whoa. And then, oh, it feels good again. Oh, okay, we're back. That's a cycle of resolution. That is a natural cycle within life. things are going to be good, things are going to be bad, but showing our nervous system that it's always, even if you're in the depths of the darkness and it doesn't feel good and you feel lost, it is always going to come back to that full resolution. And that's a way that we can entrain and show our bodies that cycle. So if someone is playing and it just sounds weird and off and uncomfortable for way longer, maybe half of the time or the whole time, they don't understand what's really happening physically, somatically in the body.
Sounds like if it's not moving through versus like staying at one,
Yes.
or one, if it's not kind of going through the whole full cycle. And I think the sound, the vibrating of the bowls, and it's like an analogy for what's happening inside. It sounds like, right, if like your bowl might crack and explode. And similarly, that's like, a wound, an energetic or emotional wound that is being like poked versus allowing it to breathe.
Right.
So if you are new to sound healing or you've never heard of it and you're just super curious, where do you suggest? What do we do? Where do we go?
Yeah, so different people's locations are going to imply if they have access to sound healing in person. The more remote places, literally, that you might have none, or you might have one, and that one sound healer might not be good. And so what do you do to get around that? I do really deeply feel that in-person sound healing is going to yield the most results. A virtual sound healing at that point is music. And music also has the ability to entrain us, but we're not receiving the frequencies through our body. So just knowing that there's that difference, but you can explore different spaces. There are lots of different apps. There are lots of different sound healers that have their own platforms. I have my sound baths on my Substack. So Substack is like an online virtual library. Some of them are for free. Most of everything that I have in there, including I do a lot of writing and podcasts and meditations as well, that's $8 a month. Or you can find people on Insight Timer. Insight Timer is a great app. That's a free app that usually people, different practitioners, will have one or two of their meditations as like a landing point. That's a great place to type in sound healing, and then you get to explore for free all of these different types of sound healers. I use the Crystal Tones bowls. Those sound very different than the frosted glass bowls. That sounds very different than the metal Tibetan or Himalayan bowls. That's very different than gongs. Gongs are like a whole other world that I'm deeply passionate about. Then there's medicine, music, sound healing. There's lots of different sound healing, voice. You can have vocal toning, people singing through sound healing. So just take the time to find what feels most exciting and what feels most natural to you.
I love that you offer on Substack. I'm going to go check it out because I think Substack has opened up a whole world for accessibility and connection virtually that we maybe just didn't really have or had gotten away from. And I love that it's kind of brought back the world of blogging a little bit because people have things to express verbally and maybe aren't really comfortable, making the reels or the things that, showing their face, or they just, they want to express themselves. So I really love that. And I am curious to know about your personal practice. Like, what does your practice look like? Does it incorporate sound healing? I know you said you don't attend a lot, of course, because you're facilitating so much, but tell us about your personal practice.
Yeah, so through my own work within the mentor space and everything that I do within my mentorship is from what I have learned and practices that I have implemented myself. And I call it my embodiment blueprint. And it is 30 days. It's always a 30-day chunk of 11 micro tasks that will help me to up level to my next version. And that next level version is literally, who will I be at the end of this month if I do these 11 things? And keeping it within the integrity of my personal capacity. So We all know the New Year's resolution thing really doesn't pan out well. 90% of people fall off their resolutions within the first 3 weeks, and it's because people are overshooting their capacity. It's as simple as that. They are so disconnected from where they are currently versus who they think they are that they can't sustain the aspirations that they have. And then it actually ends up being this repeating cycle where they prove to themselves that they're not good enough. And then they're just continuing to play out, but they're setting themselves up for it. So it's very tricky. Within my mentorship, I work with people through their own blueprint, but I always have a blueprint of my own going on. I know there'll be people listening, I'll read it for you, but it's very simple. I just have a list of the 11 micro tasks that I make, and every day I do a tally mark. I'll read out, for example, I have what I call my incense ritual, which is literally I just pick an incense that I want to burn, and depending on the type that it requires a different energy. Then I sit and do my 3-minute meditation, which is also something that I've developed. And all of these things, by the way, are on my Substack if you're interested. 3-minute meditation is sitting in silence with a 3-minute timer on my phone, and I stay connected to my 5 senses. It's building the observational muscle. Every time my mind drifts to something other than within my 5 senses, I catch that I've drifted and I come back. And depending on the day and where I am in my practice, I could drift 7 times through 3 minutes, or I could drift once and be out there the whole 3 minutes, and then the timer goes off and I'm like, oh, I forgot to come back. But every time you come back, it strengthens the muscle of observation. After that, then I do a 3-minute verbal conversation with God, just to have a check-in and connect to that divine source. Then I do the workout witch, and she has different somatic movement courses.
Was that the one you just highlighted recently where you experienced so much physical transformation?
I've lost a lot of the weight that was really stubborn and I couldn't let go of for decades. And Liz Tenuto is her name, aka the Workout Witch. And I highly recommend her somatic courses. I have all of that linked on my Instagram. And so I do one of those a day, 64 ounces of water a day, lights out in bed by 9:30 p.m., alternating an herbal infusion and an elixir every day. I do a morning mirror check-in where before I do anything else, I'm in my full morning wake up glory, as we all know, and I deeply connect with myself. I say, I love you. How can I support you today? And then whatever is the first thing that comes through is what I do. To this morning was throw away the rest of those chips that I've been eating, and so I threw them out. I will do either facial cupping, so I have like a facial cupping, or I have this resonance device called Healy. That's a whole other episode that we could talk about, but it's like literally a wearable frequency device that scan your frequency and tell you what is lacking or could be improved, and then it sends that frequency through your body. The next one is either sing one song or read for 10 minutes. And then the last one is to add, which I have on the back of my little thing, is my list of the qualities that I'm looking for in my masculine partnership. It's really nice to every day be like, okay, I'm only focusing on one quality and I'm just going to write this out as clearly as possible.
Love that. Before we transition to our final 2 questions, what else would you like to highlight that we may not have covered about the sound healing realm that would be really important for people just maybe starting to discover, if anything? No pressure. Yeah. I want to give you the floor last on that topic.
Thank you. Openness is coming through of even if you have or have yet to, and you experience a session that is not good, to not give up on it. Not everything is for everyone. I will say that. Some people's sound is not for them, and that's totally fine. Don't feel like you need to make yourself fit into what's popular. And be open to the different types of sound healers. The thing that I hear the most, it happens almost every single session, is, oh, that's what sound healing is supposed to be. So just because you've experienced this one thing and maybe you liked it, but it was okay, or you felt confusing, or it felt detrimental, or whatever, just try not to give up so quickly. And if you do give it your best shot and you're just like, actually, that's not for me, then cool. You've just strengthened this cord of discernment within yourself, and that's really helpful for connecting to your true frequency.
Beautiful. And so aligned with our intent of this podcast is to just open up a space where there's not one way to do all things and give people exposure. So thank you so much for letting us pick your brain and lending your expertise and grace and all the things to us. So in an effort to continue expansion within our community, and then we always end with a self-love check-in to help with the expansion process, what quote or mantra really resonates with you that has positively impacted you, or that resonates with you currently, whatever comes to mind?
This was coming through before when Michelle, you were talking, and I didn't share it, and so now I'm going to share it, is within the concept of that cycle of resolution and things moving through the body. And I heard this from one of my doctors, that if it is changing, that's a good thing. It's when it becomes stagnant and unchanging that's where the issue is. So even if you're going through, and I've had autoimmune issues and I've had the whole gambit of health things, but if it is changing, you're good. Just keep supporting yourself and allowing it to change. If you find that it's not changing, then that's an opportunity to seek even more support.
I love that. I had an energy clearing session with acupuncture, and had a really, I'll probably highlight it on our spirit nervous system. It's in that. And she said, because I had a really, sounds like probably people in some of your sessions would experience that huge influx of energy being released that can be quite scary. But she said to me, better out than in. You know, she's like, you just like got rid of something huge in there, but better out than in.
Yeah.
So what you said really resonated with me and brought a smile to my face.
And if you think about that, better out than in, when we have those fear reactions, it's often because a part of us is wanting to hold on to it. We don't really want to let it go. And so it's the resistance of, you're going to be safe and usually better off if you can really just let this aspect of your reality go. But it can be really scary because people then, we attach so much to, oh, I am this type of person, and if that's not here, then who am I going to be? But it's okay. You can let it go.
Everything is so cyclical, right? I think that's what your quote or saying made me think of, is like, everything is cyclical inside our bodies, outside in our environments. And when we try to hold, like you said, like hold on or keep things the way they are, we're just going so against the natural flow of the world. So true. Also, thank you for sharing your 11 micro tests. First of all, I'm very inspired. I love to go on a 30-day like life coach, and he loves like a 30-day vision with goals. And I'm super inspired by the micro tasks because, you know, we talk about this all the time. There's so often you may be doing these tasks, but I think when you're really making note of them, it forces you to be more present for them, to make the everyday habit a really meaningful ritual. And it doesn't have to be this grand thing. You don't need to be an expert like yoga meditator, but if you can give yourself 3 minutes, we all, you know, maybe not all, but most people experience their 5 senses. That is super powerful. I love that practice. I think I'm gonna start to incorporate the 3 minutes of the sense of just tuning into my senses, because, you know, it's a muscle, like everything, like so many things. It's such a muscle, and we forget like that we have the power to work on it in 3 minutes a day. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. So I really appreciated that. And so we'll do our self-love check-in, and I think we'll keep it really, really broad, because I love to hear from people what self-love really means to them in words, because it can be super inspiring and expansive to hear your own way. What does self-love mean to you?
Self-love means to me validating all of the parts of myself. And validating means just allowing it to be. It does not mean that I accept this as truth about myself, or that it means something specific about me or another person. It's just, oh, this part of myself feels this way, and I'm going to let it share everything it has to say about that thing. And then I find that when I fully validate and listen, then it just dissolves. It's not there, it's not festering inside anymore.
I love that. Thank you so much. And even in our time together, where can people find you and the beautiful work and see more of your beautiful soul in action and what you give to the world in just such a vulnerable and authentic way?
Thank you both so much. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Ali, for having me and for creating this podcast and for following your own line of truth. And it is infinite who this can reach, all of your episodes, what this is going to do for you. I found when I had my podcast, it was really transformative on my own journey, just in opening my throat chakra. And so it's exciting. And for finding me, my business name is Completely Golden. That's kind of like my ethos, is becoming completely golden. I've had this name through many different business entities, from nutrition school and chef work and now, but it still holds true. And my website is completelygolden.com, on Instagram, Completely Golden, Substack, completelygolden.substack.com. And then I also have sound healer trainings, and we'll be facilitating deep rest retreats as well. We'll be doing 2 sound healer trainings per year and 2 deep rest retreats. And these deep rest retreats are really about tending to the inner garden of our own spiritual gifts by resting. I think that, like what we were talking about in this episode, people, it's so fast and I want more, and we have to go. And we forget that you have to let things integrate, and you have to let the seed die out before it can rejuvenate and send new roots in. And so you can find all of that either through me at Completely Golden or through the School of Resonance. I'm always open, as Ali mentioned. You just sent me a message and I replied with a voice note. I love connecting with people. Please reach out and say hi if you feel called to, and don't feel like, oh, I don't want to bother her, or she has this many followers and that means that she's unavailable. Like, I don't know where that came from, but that's me. Thank you so much.
We'll tag all of that stuff too in our show notes for our listeners. And Tess, we are so ever grateful to our first guest ever. And hopefully our Karmic Mirror listeners, this resonated with you and inspired you just as much as it did Michelle and I. So until next episode, take care, beloveds.
Bye.